What's going on, everybody? Patrick and Austin back with some more boys discussion, more boy talk with the boys.
Oh,
You know what I
boys.
mean?
Thursdays is for the boys.
Thursdays for the boys. What'd you think? Oh, what was he? Where were we at? Episode 5?
Season 4, episode
Season 4,
5.
episode 5. Beware the Jabberwock, my son. What did we think of this episode, Austin?
This is my favorite episode in recent memory.
Ooh, okay.
Um, unlike that, kind of, for the most part, well, I guess, I actually really like the action in this one, unlike the
Mm-hmm.
last episode. I think that the, I'll stay vague. The farm scenes were
Mm.
incredible, just an absolutely hilarious and fun idea that they really played with and I loved. Um, the kind of wrap up to that, I have questions about it, but other than that, I really think most of the stuff in this episode was pretty good. Some of the V52 stuff kind of was not good, but that was really my only downside. This had fun, this had horror, this had tragedy, it had kind of everything you could want in it. I think it's one of my favorite episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I'm of the same mindset as you. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. For everything you said, it had some knockout performances from certain key characters in this episode. We had a good mix of comedy and horror and drama, and it just character stories being taken to the next level in ways that you wouldn't expect in classic boys fashion. So,
Mhm.
I truly dug this episode. This was a good one. Might,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is easily my favorite of the season.
hmm
Without like not, it's not even close.
yeah, I agree. A lot of yeah. I was about to just start spoiling. I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, I did really like this episode, and it's hard for me to talk about the specifics, but I think we took a lot of characters actually took up some big steps forward in their respective stories in a
Hmm.
way that I didn't expect and really appreciated.
Hmm.
And I think that's just the key takeaway for me from this episode, alongside the humor and the horror elements. Let's
Yeah.
there's some stuff in there. I was like, holy shit! All right.
Yes. Even for this show, which is
Yeah.
saying something.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I think we should stop tiptoeing around it. I think we have to spoil it.
Okay.
So, unless you,
What's hit me with your favorite of the storylines that we saw.
all right. So, final warning: get out. Come back when you watch the episode. Um, let's see. Obviously, I liked all the stuff at the farm. That was a lot of fun. I think it was really
Hmm.
cool seeing Stan Edgar again. We haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I thought when they were putting him in the car and they were like, okay, we didn't get the virus, so we're gonna send you away. Kind of made me think like, oh, we couldn't afford to have Giancarlo Esposito for more than one episode, and I thought he was gonna be gone, but that didn't turn out true. But I'm
Right.
very distracted. My favorite plot line probably has to be Huey's storyline with his dad. I think
Hmm.
that was the emotional core for me this episode, and I think uh, it worked really well. It worked really effectively. I think it went from a moment of, oh, he's alive. He's got, we gave him the V. He's alive. He seems normal so far. Like, obviously, he's got powers. We just don't know how that's going to manifest. And then he starts having, like, the lapses in memory, which kind of makes sense. He had a massive stroke. It didn't necessarily cure that. And then he
Right.
starts doing, like, Shadowcat shit, which she's one of my favorite X-Men. So I'm like, let's go. But it was kind of fucked up and twisted. And then to kind of have it all wrap up in the way that it did towards the end of the episode, I was like, oh, that was really good. It was really good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of redeemed storylines in this one for
Mm.
me. And this is one of them. I wasn't totally bought into this was beforehand. Um, and even in the beginning parts of this, wasn't really that into it. But as soon as we saw him, there with the heart in his hand, it
Mm-hmm.
was like the whole everything changed and just turned on a dime
Yeah.
in a way that was really interesting and fun. We finally get to use Simon Pegg for something.
Mm-hmm.
He was just kind of here in this show for so long, just kind of like not getting any opportunity to do anything, real. He had a little bit obviously in season one, but
Mm-hmm.
He finally gets to like have his big kind of moment in the show before he goes out, and he really put his all into it. Obviously,
Hmm.
we got the emotional side of him at the end there, but we also got sort of his like comedy horror as well,
Hmm.
through all of his scenes phasing in and out of people. That was just like a ton of horrific fun to watch.
Hmm.
And it, started and fulfilled its own storyline all internally to this episode with the not turning into Jar Jar um,
Yeah.
bit. And that really worked for me, obviously, when it came back around. I wasn't like a I cried story bit because we just didn't get enough of Simon recently, and I don't think so many bad things have happened to Huey that it's not like I'm not phased by him being in this kind of emotional set.
Hmm.
Uh, so like it didn't get me in that way, but great performance, great kind of story. I really liked all of it
Yeah. No, he was easily the best performance of this episode, and it's why we love Simon Pegg. He's great in just about everything he's in. So
for sure.
shout out to that. Yeah, it didn't get me to cry either, but I was like, oh man, this is hitting a little close to home. So it didn't almost get me. It didn't get me at all really, but it was like it was good. I want to shout out the V52 bit real quick. I'm not a huge fan when people try to do stuff like this. It's like the Minions just did this a couple weeks ago. Where it's like here's our timeline. It's obviously mocking the MCU and stuff, which it's totally fine. It's not without can't be not be made fun of. But it felt it works here in a couple levels because you have V52, obviously a reference to D23, but you could also see it as a nod to the new 52 from DC. Uh, I don't know. That's just a weird little thing that I noticed that it's like, ooh, 52. I know that number. So anyway, and everything with
I,
that.
I I
Anyway,
think some of it worked and some of it didn't.
yeah.
Obviously, some of the satire hits in a way that's like, very pertinent. Like when they had the two actors come up and they looked completely awkward on the stage,
Hmm.
or they have, one of the characters come out and give this like crazy pitch for their show of like the
Hmm.
guy where he's like, and there's gonna be a 13-minute pitch black scene. Like
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
that took it a little bit too far at times. Where you're like, you may actually be giving them too much credit for um, what the shows and movies actually end up being. But
Hmm.
some of it landed in a way that was really funny. I think it was kind of hit or miss a bit, but
Yeah.
um,
I agree.
it was a fun little um, kind of jab at all of that.
Yeah, I think the two that got me the most were when Tech Knight came out and he's like, "It's been about a year since my last movie, so it's
So
time
I need
for
a
a reboot."
reboot. Yeah.
And then I forget the other one. I think it was A Train who's saying, "Yeah, we just finished doing the reshoots of the reshoots of the reshoots, so we spent the most money on it, so it's going to be good." And
Yeah.
I was just looking over at the new Captain America movie. I'm like, "You better be good, man. You better be good." I don't know.
I don't have hopes.
We'll see. I'm not hopeful either. Shout out to Blade. But yeah, so I just want a quick shout out that bringing in some of the
Hmm.
characters from Gen V as well. Love to see that. Done in a big way too. They included some of Gen V in the recap for this episode. I was like, oh, okay.
Which threw me off because I was like, wait, when did I miss this
Yeah.
whole piece of this? And I've eventually figured out it was Gen V, but I was like, I actually like restarted the recap and watched
Hmm.
it again because I was like, wait, did I just miss that in an episode? I was like, there's no way.
Yeah. No, they just kind of. I don't want to say they assumed, but it kind of felt like they assumed you'd watched it by this point. So I was curious. As soon
They
as I
did.
saw that, I'm like, what is Austin thinking about this right now? I'm curious.
Yeah,
So
it threw me for a double take.
yeah.
And it was, I mean, obviously, we were talking about the kind of animals and how much fun it was with the all the different kinds. We had the goats, or
Hmm.
rather the sheep. We had the cow. We had chickens. We had uh, hamsters.
Yeah.
All with little different V powers, and I liked all of that. Um, However, the I had a couple of issues at the end, so I'll kind
Mm.
of walk through it a little bit.
All right.
Um, the when they get to the barn with Samir, right, and they're having this conversation about whether or not to use what they determine to be the very last of the virus that exists in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We get to the barn with Samir, and they're, it's the last of the virus, and they're having this conversation about whether or not to use it. They did not linger on that nearly long.
Mm.
And this is one of the, kind of issues that we've been having with the show recently. I shouldn't say us. I've been having with the show recently of they'll just bring in a weapon to kill superheroes and then just immediately get rid of it
Mm-hmm.
and just use it instead of, you know, actually contemplating what this means when the whole show is about a group who kills superheroes. And this was the perfect example. They didn't even fully think out the thought process of like what this actually means to use this. It was basically just, no, Butcher, you're an asshole for not wanting to save the last virus ever.
Mm.
And we, the people who don't want to potentially sacrifice our own, are the good people because we're willing to give up this thing. And I think that is way too simplistic of an explanation of that scenario that they were in.
Mm. See, that kind of worked for me. I was a little miffed about it, to be honest, because, spoilers for Gen V, the virus is kind of involved with everything that happens there. But seeing it kind of brought up and then allegedly being used to the last drop here in this episode, I was like, oh, we're just going to kind of move on for that. But then I think the end of the episode might be fixing that. We'll see. I'm not sure, honestly. But I thought it was an interesting turn, or an interesting, somewhat interesting conflict. Again, it's that Butcher versus everybody else kind of mentality that I am a little bit sick of. Um, so yeah, I do think that Starlight turning on Butcher here in the barn was a little bit like, oh, I see your reasoning and I'm with you, but I don't know, it just feels a little tired still.
Well,
Um,
and I get that from them. Like,
yeah,
it's a furthering of the storyline that we already have.
right.
But my problem is not a single person brought up the larger um, scenario that they're in.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
they're all, I mean, well, putting Annie to the side because sometimes she's with the boys and sometimes she's not. The
Mm,
whole point that the boys are trying to do is kill Homelander. They
mm-hmm.
keep getting opportunities and they keep getting weapons to do it, and then they just get rid of them. And in this case, they didn't even, like, no one even said, like, hey guys, there's a raging maniac, right, who took over the biggest company in the world, and this is a thing that could kill him. I understand, these are our homies, but, like, we may be thinking about the greater good here. And whether or not you land on that in the end,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm still might be a little miffed by it, but you need to at least broach the concept instead of just, like, not even considering it.
Yeah, well, they did mention that the one dose they had wouldn't be enough to kill Homelander. I think that's
Right, but you can
no,
make
the
more
virus
if you
itself.
have it.
The virus itself wasn't going to be enough. I need to up the lethality of it. I think I forget exactly what the deal was. So their real goal by getting it was to take care of Newman, who just happened to be in the barn with them at that moment. So I understand why they didn't bring that up, but also I think that could have been an interesting point of conversation when you have Stan Edgar and Newman in the same room and you're talking about getting a virus that could kill her and stuff. Um, so I do think that should have come up in conversation there. I'm a little disappointed that it didn't, but also I don't know. Frenchie's line about how is this man gonna fuck those sheep kind of made up for that for me, honestly.
That was a funny line. It was great.
So I
And
don't
just
know.
furthering of the ridiculousness of people who are like, Frenchie's gay?
Yeah,
Like, that whole thing. It just further that, because that is totally in line with Frenchie and is also just hilariously funny.
it's so funny. Yeah, it's one of my favorite lines this episode. I think. Trying to think. Also, real. This is real off topic, but when they said Marvin Milk at the end of the episode, I thought, is that his actual name?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure because I didn't know if that was the deep fucking up Mother's Milk's name or not, and thought the M standed for Marvin. I don't know. It was funny in my head,
I
honestly.
do believe his name is actually Marvin,
Okay,
although I'm bad with names, so
I'll roll with that. I'll believe you. That sounds true, honestly.
I there were a couple of interesting little pieces that came off of that storyline too,
Mm,
of the kind of conversation between Starlight and Newman, where Newman
mm,
basically just picked Annie apart in terms of her
yeah.
mental state. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she owned her. If there's anything that's true about Newman, even if she didn't have powers, she would have been a great political figure
Yeah.
because her ability to just manipulate people. I mean, obviously
Pick
she,
people
you know,
apart.
is the son of Stan Edgar, so like,
Right.
fair enough.
Learn from the best.
Um, yeah, and so that was really fun. Obviously, just showing more and more Annie's kind of being lost, but
Mm-hmm.
then also the conversation between Frenchie and Annie, where they had
Mm.
this
Mm-hmm.
whole conversation about um, God and how it all plays in their world. I
Mm-hmm.
thought was brought even we've had, and even in this episode, some of the like the firecracker and the preacher and all of that, that's like just the purely one-sided version of like this is bad religion. And
Mm-hmm.
here we got some of the like this is what religion can mean to someone, and how their experiences in life can kind of mold how they feel about it, and their kind of
Mm-hmm.
conflicting thoughts about the whole thing, which I think is one of the more interesting parts of when you have characters in a show like this that have religious beliefs, and like how the things that happen affect them.
Yeah. No, that was probably my. Ooh, that was also one of my favorite scenes this episode. I didn't want to put a number on it, but because yeah, that's exactly what went through my head. I'm like, we have in this same episode, we have Firecracker filming a religious thing where she's kneeling before her cross and she, trying to seek forgiveness before joining the Seven or whatnot. And obviously, I doubt she's super religious, but it's her using that and exploiting that to get people on her side. Whereas with Frenchie, it's like that's a true core belief that he's held, even though he's having trouble with some of the other core beliefs of the Catholic Church and stuff. And a key part of that is him not being able to forgive himself. And if you hadn't mentioned that last week, I think I would have nailed that. Would have nailed it home for me this week. That's kind
Mm-hmm.
of what he's going through. But even having having someone like talk to him like Starlight, who just revealed she had an abortion, which is something the church frowns upon heavily. Um, Talking about God, and it's like, well, yeah, it's like even people that go through that still believe in God. Like it's not wholly one-sided, where if you believe in God, then you don't believe in everything. It adds a nice,
It's a
well-roundedness to it all.
Yeah, it's a great depiction of modern religion, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like obviously, and some of it's just lost to history, but like
Mm-hmm.
there's a much more hard and fast, like you either are or you aren't. And
Right.
now everything is so much more muddled, and nothing, much like a lot of the show, nothing is black or white, everything is gray, everyone has a little good and a little
Mm-hmm.
bad. And that those are the kinds of conflicting things that uh, you have to deal with, if you're going to be a believer in the modern day. And I think that was a great depiction of that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that leads into kind of the end bit here for Frenchie, where Kimiko tries to have this heart to heart with Frenchie, because she can see he is hurting and she's hurting, and MM kind of tries to
Mm-hmm.
push her to that. But before she can get that text off, which we get the text on the screen again, but before she can get that text off and Frenchie sees it, he turns himself into the police because he's having so much guilt about all of the
Mm-hmm.
things he's done, and once again just furthering his own hatred of himself here and kind of torturing himself. What did you think about that kind of ending for him here?
I think it's really interesting. I will be because anytime I see some development like this, I try to immediately think, well, what ramifications will this have on the story? What direction can they take this? And I'm really not sure because you have someone who's confessing to doing multiple murders. Like that's pretty much a life sentence guaranteed. Uh, I'm no expert, but that sounds right. So I don't know
Yeah.
what that's going to mean moving forward. I know we were just able to get a presidential pardon for Stan Edgar, even though they kind of reneged on that. But so I don't know how easy it would be for them to do something like that. But also, I don't know. I like this turn for Frenchie. All in all, like I think it's a really good turn for him. Characters seeking their own like forgiveness from themselves has always been a storyline that's intrigued me. And now that we're kind of getting an idea of what that's going to look like for Frenchie, I'm still not sure where it's going, but I am very curious and intrigued, and I really did like it. This turn specifically.
Yeah. What I know is that what I don't want is Butcher and MM to show up and just get him out. That's what I don't want.
Yeah, and I don't think
How
it'll
they
be
would ever prove that he murdered those people, I'm not really sure.
true.
Uh, so like, I don't know how they'd work around that, but I also don't want him to just kind of like be gotten out. I
Mm-hmm.
really hope they kind of explore this more because I mean, I think that eventually, the ending to this story is Frenchie figures out how to forgive himself, but I kind of want to see that through rather than just the cop out of like, all right, he's back out because we need him, kind
Right.
of thing.
No, and I don't think it'll be that. I think it will be a journey of self-discovery. Whether that's one episode, two episodes, the rest of the season, or he doesn't get out till next season. Uh, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get out this season, quite honestly. But I think that's what
Agreed.
intrigues me the most is how they're going to get it to tie in with everything else at the end, the finale and stuff. Um, I don't know. It's very intriguing, and I'm very curious. I truly don't know where to predict that that's going, but my hope is that
Hmm.
he goes on his own journey while in prison. Whether that's like dealing with some of the other people in there, or maybe having a visitor. Maybe Colin shows up again. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know, but I'm interested.
Colin's gonna show back up. He has to.
There's
The
no way he
fact that
doesn't.
Annie referenced it means he's got to come back.
Yeah, agreed.
The other big storyline we haven't really talked about is the stuff with Homelander and Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this kind of weaves into the V-52 and all that as well. But um, Homelander is kind of, he's gotten to this point where he believes that he needs to save the world and kind of rebuild it in his image. And now he's trying to infect Ryan with that same kind of thought process. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there are some really interesting twists and turns in this one.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, um, he does the whole like you have no rules, you can do whatever you want kind of thing, and he doesn't listen to him at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this kind of like moment of reflection out of Homelander where he goes like all my life I had these people doing these things to me and manipulating me in all of these ways, and I've just realized now like I don't need any of them, and they can't control me or anything like that. And he's telling this to Ryan, and it's like this moment of fresh air
Mm-hmm.
in this um like whole path we've been going down of Homelander kind of spiraling, where it's like he has a realization, and obviously he still spins it to go the way he wants, but it's one of those ones that could teeter either way, where like when you
Mm-hmm.
really think about this, you could go the other way of like, maybe this thought process I've got to now is actually not a good one because of what they've done to me. um, but obviously we see him go down the dark side,
Mm-hmm.
and we get the whole bit right after that where Ryan's like, I want to save people. I actually want to help people, not this fake voodoo nonsense or whatever.
Right.
Save them behind the camera. And Homelander again, he just like finds the way to twist it to where he makes Ryan think, he's saving that PA, but also he's like furthering this whole like turning him into there's no rules, I control all of the normal humans, they do as I please
Mm-hmm.
type thing that is a really fun kind of like um, Homelander using the like manipulation that he's had all of his life to kind of do it on Ryan, even if he doesn't realize what he's doing himself.
Yeah, and I think he does because there's a moment where he turns away from Ryan. He just has a smile on his face as the personal assistant is slapping the director. But that I really liked that turn because yeah, this entire time it's like obviously we don't want Ryan to turn out like Homelander. We don't want him to become like twisted and cruel. And you hope that with the way his mother raised him originally and how Butcher's been treating him, that he's not going to turn out that way. And you see him kind of resist Homelander's like temptations of, yo, you can do whatever you want. We're gods, you know. You can say no if you want to. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you get Homelander twisting his innocent, pure motives of helping this woman out who's being, bothered at work and stuff. So it comes from a good place, but Homelander's able to like twist that in a way that's just it just felt, you know, ugh.
Yeah,
And Ryan was
and
smiling
it
toward the end of it too, and I'm like, oh, so
and it's played so well by the two actors
yeah,
uh, that really sells it. I mean, you could. That's the kind of thing that you really have to sell in the performance.
mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's very easy to go too far one way or the other. And I think they both did it really well.
Yeah, and I want a quick shout out that whoever plays the director, because he just came across as that scummy director who's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," trying to laugh it off, but you could tell, and they
Hmm.
called him out on it. So I was like, "Yeah, he's not
The
right."
one thing, the only one small tidbit I have on that kind of, this is just a nitpick, but
Mm-hmm.
there's the whole scene with Ashley and him where she like steps on his balls in the stall or whatever,
Mm.
and then here he's getting slapped around by a woman, but now he hates it. I'm not buying that.
Fair enough.
Uh, so that part had me a little sideways that they kind
Mm-hmm.
of just let that one go, but that's not that big of a deal. Um, and that leads us into kind of the final bit of this arc where Homelander has the meeting in the whatever level that is, I can't remember, 99 or whatever,
Something like that. Yeah.
um, with all of the heroes where he, what is, I wrote the quote down. What did he say they were? He wants to turn them
Scapegoat.
into wrathful gods
Mm-hmm.
to save America. And it's almost a like uh, Joker a la the Dark Knight type scene
Mm-hmm.
where he, tries to turn the henchman, um, and he makes all of the soups uh, kill the reporter, whatever the fuck his name is. I can't remember.
I couldn't be bothered
Um,
to remember either.
yeah, and that's kind of like their initiation into the group, which is a really interesting scene. Obviously, a little bit of the backstory that I kind of cut out there is um, the back and forth between Ashley and A Train, where he or A Train rather uh, has to kind of employ her to be on his side in a blackmail, mutually assured destruction type way of like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you need to save me from being caught with this, and so they frame the reporter as the person who was the leak,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like you can see where this is all going, right? We've had the like we're starting to build the turmoil in the world, the humans all around, and now we're building the team of superheroes that are going to try and take over the world and rebuild it in their image. And we're
Yeah.
starting to get all these pieces coming together, and we're that's really going to come to something, whether it's here at the end of the season or into the next one. But we're starting to build all those pieces together.
Yeah. And what I really liked about that bit at the tower at the end was it was kind of like an intersection of like three different arcs kind of coming together. You had, Homelander coming in with his righteous vengeance and fury. You had A Train and Ashley trying to, Ashley's taking petty revenge on this reporter because, he dumped her. It's like, I need a Dami mommy, and you're not Dami enough, mommy, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
so it just kind of worked out. He's like, he was our scapegoat, and it also worked out for the Deep, who's like, I'm going to fuck your wife, and I'm not going to have to come up for her because I can breathe through her juices, which, what a
Hmm.
line. um, so it was just kind of a way to bring like two or three different storylines together in a way that felt really good. In a way, and it was also just kind of fucked up. It was like, oh, I don't like the guy, but this feels wrong, for obvious reasons,
Yeah.
you know.
Especially, as we've seen him slowly over time bend to their will and basically be their mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Just to, further, maybe even a lesson that Ashley won't see, but a lesson that, bending yourself to their will doesn't actually save you from their wrath.
Right. And I did like that bit. Just kind of backtrack a little bit, where that reporter's talking to the Deep earlier, and he's like, the Deep's complaining about him reporting on him being let go from crime analytics, whatever division he was let go
Mm-hmm.
from. And he's like, well, I gotta pretend that I gotta report on some of this stuff so that it looks like I'm fair and balanced. I'm like,
Right.
I know what that's referencing. All right, cool. So yeah, shout out to that.
I thought, in that moment, I thought he was pissed about the fact that he had his ex-wife on or whatever,
Mm,
and they did the whole book club piece, and I was a little surprised that he didn't bring that up because I would be more annoyed about that part, but
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, it is what it is. Mm.
Other than that, there's not a lot else. Is there any other things you wanted to cover from this episode?
Um, there's a brief conversation between Firecracker and Sage, where Firecracker's like,
Yeah.
you planned on me getting beat up." She's like, "You think I'm stupid and can't think of I'm ugly and can't think ahead." And she's like, "Well, you're not ugly," or something like that. I'm definitely not getting that line right, but that I really like that dynamic of, well, Firecracker knows that Sage is fucking with her, and she's not going to take it lying down. So I'm curious to see where that goes. I'm not sure I don't know. I'm
There's
curious.
there's an interesting potential storyline here that's building of Firecracker turning to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And I'll just kind of lay out the case a little bit here.
Okay.
So we have the stuff between Annie and Firecracker, right, where she goes through her backstory about how she put all of this effort into trying to win these hero beauty pageants, and then Annie kind of fucked her over to win it all. And you get some of that like pageant mom type stuff, and how her whole kind of it, life was a ruse to try and win. And then
Mm-hmm.
we've got that parallel that with what she's doing right now, right? She's basically created this fake person who is using all of those skills she had to build this ruse to get to, you know, be a part of and win in this case, as part of the winning team. But then you've got Annie in, her first one kind of holding her down, and now we've got Sage kind of doing the same thing where she's like basically just using her to
Mm-hmm.
get to her own ends. And so there's a potential storyline building there where Firecracker goes like, I'm being used again. I was doing all of these things because I thought what I was going to do is get my revenge on Annie, and I was going to become the hot shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually just put myself in this same exact scenario. We'll see obviously Annie kind of over this period she's losing herself, and eventually figures it out. And then they have this almost like come to Jesus moment where the two of them kind of reconcile to an extent, not that they're going to be like
Mm-hmm.
friends,
No.
but
Yeah.
and we'll see the whole Firecracker using her wit and her ability to kind of twist things to lean things back to the other side. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but there is a potential there that you can
Yeah.
kind of see building if they wanted to go that way.
Yeah. And it's certainly not an arc I would have thought, but if that's how it plays out, I wouldn't be super upset, quite honestly. It's an interesting turn to all that. Yeah.
It would be wild. I mean, there would need some redemption for Firecracker to come. Obviously, we need
Mm-hmm.
to see her kind of get like really fucked by the seven
Yeah.
for that. But
Yeah. And I don't think we're done with her kind of getting the short end of the stick from the seven. So I could see that happening. I agree. I don't think it's a lock, but that's an interesting idea for sure. One other thing I want to shout out, just having Tech Knight and Sage in the room, I think that's really interesting. Because I think with Sage being the smartest person, smartest hero in the world, with someone like Tech Knight who's really good at analyzing personal ticks to see if like you're lying or whatever, I think that can make for a killer combo. I'm just waiting for her to be like, "Hey, go talk to A Train for me real quick. He seems sus." So I don't know.
we do have the whole like underlying thing of like, does Sage know that A Train leaked it too,
Mm-hmm.
which is real interesting. I think they're probably just playing that up. I don't know if she actually does know, um,
Yeah.
but there's some undercurrent there.
And every time she's like standing next to him and she's like, you see her like staring at him, it's like, well, I have to remind myself she's not Tech Knight. She can't notice the little ticks that A Train might have just by looking at him. She's not that. But part of me still wonders, like, she's got to know something, right? I don't know.
Hmm.
Hard to tell with her. So.
I will say the absence of, this is obviously not a storyline, but the absence of the heavy-handed political stuff
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of helped this episode.
I agree.
Um, this had a lot more nuanced um, ideas that it was dealing with in this one, and I think that kind of aided a lot of the storylines of what was going on here, and is part of why I think this was such a good episode.
Mm-hmm. Now, one final question: do we still trust Huey's mom after this
No.
episode? You don't think so?
I'm not. So here's the thing. I
Mm-hmm.
feel less confident in what I said last episode
Mm-hmm.
about her being sus,
Yeah.
but I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get past that now that I've had that thought, that I'm just like always going to have that in the back of
Mm-hmm.
my mind of like, is she? Because listen, she's naive at a
Yeah,
minimum.
for
She's
sure.
either actually naive or playing naive,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not convinced one way or the other.
Yeah, I think I'm with you where it's like, yeah, definitely feeling a little less confident in what we said last week, but also this week kind of went a short distance in proving that, hey, she's actually not that suspicious, but yeah, I'm right there with you. I still don't trust her completely.
Also, you made me just think about it. she said, "Oh, the V fell on the ground." I don't believe that shit.
No.
That's the part that makes me not believe, like, not just believe she's naive, because that part of it, I'm like, there's no fucking way.
I
That is
have
like a
so many
glass
questions about
vial,
that. Mm-hmm.
and we even saw in this episode all of the
Yeah.
glass vials broken on the ground. So I don't believe that for one fucking second. So there's something going on there.
Yeah, there's gotta be. There's gotta be. No what? No, I'm back. Nope. Huey's
I'm
mom
so
can't be
back,
trusted.
dude. After
Back on the
thinking
menu.
about that.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, that settles it. Huey's mom is sus. All right.
Exhausted.
Any other thoughts we want to get out before we wrap her up?
No, those are all of my thoughts.
All right. So with that, yeah, that's gonna do it. We both like this episode. 2 thumbs up. Wah, wah. I'm assuming you have 2 thumbs up, Austin. I can't tell. Oh, there it is. All right. So if you like what we do, like and subscribe for more. What are your thoughts on the episode? Leave those thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, all that other.
Is Huey's mom sus? Let us know, because we're on board.
Is Simon Pegg actually still dead? Yes, the answer is yes. But let us know in the comments
The
below.
double fake out.
Double. I almost expected it. It kind of lingered on his face for a second.
Okay.
Would you go on the Da Vinci Code tour in Paris? Let me know. Let us know. Comments below. We'll be back. Well, Austin will be back next week. And then
I will. Solo dolo next week.
Yeah, after that, only 2
Unless maybe I can convince John, but I don't think he's seen any of the episodes. So
No,
probably
I don't think he has. But yeah, only, 3 more episodes left? That's kind of crazy. So yeah, we'll be here for it. You should be here for it too. And I'm going a little long on this outro. But anyway, talk to you later. Bye-bye. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Made it to the end of the video. Proud of you. You know what else you should do? You should hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Be sure to tune into our live streams. Check out some of these videos that I've put up here around me for you to check out and enjoy. That is all.